Have you ever felt trapped in a life that wasn't yours? Imagine being sold by the one person who was supposed to protect you, your own father. At just 17, Callie's world shattered in an instant, thrown from a life of pain and neglect into a whirlwind of secrets, betrayal, and unexpected hope. But what if the person who bought her wasn't just a stranger, but the key to a future she never dared dream of? This is not just a story of survival. It's a journey of discovering strength in the darkest places and finding the courage to rewrite your own destiny. Stay with us because what happens next will shock you and inspire you to believe that even in the harshest storms, there's always a dawn waiting to break. The blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, warm and metallic, as the worn leather belt was raised again in the dim, dusty kitchen. But just as the blow was about to fall, the screen door burst open with a crash that echoed through the dry fields. "Touch her again, old man," a voice growled like thunder, "and I swear this land will drink your blood instead." A man in a tailored gray suit stood at the doorway, his eyes cold, one hand on a revolver holstered at his side. In that moment, Callie Mae Walker, 17, barefoot, bruised and dirt-streaked, knew her life would never be the same again. The sun scorched the cracked earth of Willow Creek, Texas, a forgotten farming town choked by drought and dust. The house where Callie lived leaned sideways like it was too tired to stand. Nothing green had grown there in months. She'd woken up before dawn, as always, on a torn piece of foam that served as a mattress, hugging a rolled-up flannel shirt for a pillow. Her body ached from sleeping on the floor, and her heart raced with fear. What if she'd overslept? "Callie!" Her father's raspy voice cut through the morning silence. Earl Walker was a wreck of a man, bloated with moonshine, and anger, his eyes red and puffy from another sleepless night. "Get that fire started. You think breakfast makes itself—" "I'm coming, Daddy," she whispered, slipping on her threadbare dress and heading to the kitchen where cold ashes waited in the hearth. She knelt and blew gently on the embers she'd saved from the night before, adding brittle twigs. Her fingers trembled from hunger and fear. "You hear me, Francine?" Earl barked toward the back room. "That girl's still sleeping on her lazy ass," a sharp voice answered. "She needs to start pulling her weight or we'll end up feeding her till she's 40. Francine, her stepmother, always made sure Callie knew she wasn't wanted. A second wife hardened by poverty and jealousy, she saw Callie not as a child, but as an unwanted mouth to feed. Callie kept her eyes down, pouring the boiling water through grounds measured with painful care. Too little and he'd curse her. Too much and she'd wear a bruise for days. "Morning, Daddy," she said softly, not daring to meet his eyes. He snorted. "Don't you daddy me. You ain't worth the salt in your sweat." Callie didn't respond. She'd learned that silence was safer than truth. The memory of her real mother, Mary Ellen, was fading like the scent of lavender that once lingered in the corners of the house. Her mother died when Callie was just 9 from fever, from neglect, from the loss of dreams. Maybe all three. It was shortly after Mary Ellen's funeral that Francine moved in, all sharp elbows and cold eyes, bringing with her bitterness and a hunger for control. Callie had hoped for kindness. What she got was cruelty. As she poured coffee for Earl, Francine hissed from across the room. "Don't stand there daydreaming. You're going to the creek. And while you're at it, pull the weeds and mend that busted fence. Food don't fall from the sky." "Yes, ma'am." She took a sip of the leftover coffee, her only portion, and headed outside, clutching the rusty bucket. Her bare feet kicked up little clouds of dust as she walked the long path toward Dry Creek, the only source of water within miles. Everyone in town knew the Walkers, but no one intervened. "Family business," they said. "Ain't ours to fix." Callie had long learned how to survive by dreaming. As she walked, she imagined another life. A small apartment in the city, clean clothes, warm food, books to read. Her mother had taught her to read before she died, and those few lessons were her only window to a different world. As she approached the creek, her eyes caught something strange. A black SUV, sleek foreign, was parked on the dirt road. Nobody around here drove anything like that. Her pace slowed. Her heart beat faster. Back at the house, something was off. Francine had scrubbed her face and brushed her hair. Earl wore a wrinkled button-down, the least filthy shirt he owned. "Get cleaned up," Francine snapped. "We've got a visitor." Callie frowned. A visitor? Someone from the city? Mr. Daniel Prescott. He's interested in buying the land, Francine said with a forced sweetness. Maybe finally get some real money out of this hellhole. Why does he need to see me? Callie asked uneasy. Francine's lips tightened. Just do what I say, and wear that dress of your mother's. Something about it made Callie shiver. Why would a wealthy stranger care about a broken piece of land in a dying town? And why did her father and stepmother, who usually hid her away like a shameful secret, now want her on display? She obeyed. The dress still smelled faintly of lavender. She braided her long hair with trembling fingers and stepped outside. That's when she saw him. Tall, commanding, and out of place, Daniel Prescott leaned against the fence post speaking with her father. His suit alone cost more than the house behind them. But what struck her most weren't his clothes, it was his eyes. Piercing, knowing, and fixed directly on her. There she is, Earl called. This here's Callie, 17, strong as any man, raised on this land. Daniel stepped forward and extended his hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, Callie. Her hand was rough, blistered. His was firm and warm. She hesitated, then shook it. The pleasure's mine, sir. That's when her life started to change, though she had no idea yet how much. As her stepmother chimed in with a saccharine laugh, Callie noticed how Daniel never took his eyes off her. Not with lust, not with pity, but with a curious intensity. As if he already knew something about her she didn't know herself. What secret did this stranger carry? And why did her father suddenly seem eager to sell? Not the land, but her thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. What do you think Daniel is really after? Why did he come all the way to Willow Creek? Do you think Callie should trust him or run? If this story moved you, drop a like in the comments or type 100 to show your support. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know, and don't forget to share this story with someone who needs to believe in second chances. The silence inside the house was suffocating. Callie stood barefoot in her mother's old dress, her eyes darting between her father and the strange man from the city. Something in her gut screamed that this wasn't just a visit about land. Callie, Daniel Prescott said smoothly, I was hoping you'd show me around the property. A place always looks different through the eyes of someone who's lived it. Francine grinned like a snake. She knows every inch of this land. She'll be happy to give you the grand tour. Happy Callie gave a stiff nod, her palms damp. Right this way, sir. She led him past the brittle rows of dying crops toward the broken fence line and the skeletal remains of what used to be a barn. The sun beat down with relentless cruelty, and dust clung to her legs as they walked. You've lived here all your life? He asked, watching her closely. Callie kept her eyes ahead. Yes, sir. Since I was born. And your mother? She died when I was 9. Daniel didn't speak for a moment. Then gently, I'm sorry. Callie didn't respond. Apologies didn't fix anything. Not hunger, not bruises, not years of silence. But then he said something that made her heart skip. You remind me of her. She turned sharply, stunned. You knew my mother. His gaze held hers. No, but I knew someone who did. Her heart pounded harder. Who he didn't answer. Instead, he pointed toward the lone willow tree by the creek, still standing, despite everything else dying around it. Will you take me there? They walked without speaking. The moment felt surreal. When they reached the tree, Daniel stepped into its shade and finally broke the silence. You probably don't know this, but your family's land has history. And not just farming history. People around here may not talk about it, but I've done my research. She crossed her arms, suspicious. Why would you care about some dried-up land in the middle of nowhere? I don't, he said plainly, but I care about you. The world stopped spinning for a moment. Callie stared at him, her pulse ringing in her ears. Why? Daniel looked toward the creek, voice low. Because 17 years ago, a man made a mistake. He fell in love with the wrong girl in the wrong town. She was young. He was rich. His family ripped them apart. But what no one knew was that she was pregnant. Callie's breath caught. He turned back to her. Your mother was Mary Ellen Walker, and the man she loved was my brother. The world tilted. Her knees nearly gave way. What I've spent the last 2 years trying to find you. I didn't know until recently you were still here. Your stepmother, your father. They never let anything slip. But when my brother died, I found his letters, the ones he wrote but never sent. He knew you existed. He wanted to come back. But by then it was too late. Callie took a step back. Her heart was beating like a war drum. You're saying I'm your niece? Yes. No. No, this is crazy. You're just trying to… I can prove it, he said calmly, pulling a folded document from his inside pocket. This is a copy of a paternity test from years ago hidden by my father's lawyers. And this… He reached into the other side of his jacket. This is the last letter my brother wrote before his car accident. He named you, asked me to find you, take care of you. Callie didn't move. She couldn't. Her world was unraveling thread by painful thread. Why now, she whispered. Why show up now pretending to save me? Because you were about to be sold, he said darkly. Your father, Earl, he wasn't negotiating the land. He was negotiating you. Callie's throat closed. I heard it with my own ears, Daniel said. $20,000. Today. Cash. He wanted to be rid of you. Your stepmother said it was your duty. But I couldn't let that happen. Not to my brother's daughter. Not to my niece. Tears blurred her vision, but she didn't let them fall. You bought me? She asked, the bitterness in her voice a taste she'd never known. No, he said firmly. I saved you. She wanted to scream, to run, but her legs were made of stone. She remembered Earl's bloodshot eyes, the way Francine smiled as if selling her off was just another chore, and she realized Daniel was right. What happens now? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Daniel looked at her gently. That's up to you. I have a home in Dallas, a real home. You can live there. Go to school. Be safe, be free. You won't owe me anything. But if you stay here, I can't protect you. Callie closed her eyes. The wind picked up and rustled the leaves above them. She could still hear the screen door creaking in her mind, see the broken glass of her mother's old photo frame. She'd waited her whole life for someone to save her. But now that it had happened, she didn't know what to do. When she opened her eyes, she didn't look at Daniel. She looked toward the house, toward the people who had tried to break her spirit. I want to leave. Daniel nodded, but as they returned to the porch, a figure stepped out of the shadows, Earl holding a shotgun. Where the hell you think you're going, girl? Callie froze. Daniel stepped in front of her. Put the gun down. You think you can just walk in here and take what's mine, Earl hissed. She ain't your family. She never was yours either, Daniel shot back. Francine appeared behind him, holding a thick envelope. We had a deal. Daniel's face turned to steel. You're not getting a cent. And then Earl cocked the shotgun. Callie didn't scream. She didn't cry. She stepped out from behind Daniel and faced her father, her tormentor. You want money? She said, her voice steady. Then sell your soul. You already sold your daughter. And then she turned and walked toward the car, her spine straight, the sun behind her. Daniel didn't speak again until they were 10 miles down the road. You were brave, he said. Callie stared out the window. No, she whispered. I was done being afraid. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. What would you do if you discovered your entire life had been built on lies? If someone gave you a way out, would you take it? Let us know in the comments. Type 100 if you believe Callie made the right choice. And tell us, which country are you watching from? Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that courage begins the moment we stop waiting to be saved. The drive to Dallas was long, but for the first time in her life, Callie didn't count the miles in fear. She watched the trees blur by her hands, still trembling, her heart still bruised, but something inside her had shifted. Freedom had a sound. It wasn't loud, it wasn't grand. It was silence, finally the kind that didn't scream or threaten or sting. It was the wind slipping through the crack in the window and the hum of tires on an open road. Daniel's home was nothing like the tiny rotting shack she'd left behind. It was large but not cold, warm with bookshelves full of history and art. Callie was given a room with a bed softer than anything she'd ever known, a bathroom with hot water, and most unbelievably, a desk where a brand new notebook waited for her. You can write anything you want in it, Daniel said. No rules, no one to check your thoughts. At night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, trying to believe she was safe, that she could exhale. that no one would burst through the door shouting her name in rage. But trauma doesn't vanish like magic. Some nights she woke up screaming. Others she sat by the window with her knees to her chest watching the stars. Daniel never pushed. He didn't ask her to call him uncle. He just listened, showed up with breakfast, let her take her time. It was a month before she asked, "What was my real dad like?" Daniel set down his coffee. Ricardo was brilliant, restless, too proud sometimes. But when he loved hard. He wrote music no one ever heard. He painted things he never showed. And when he found out about you, he cried. I'd never seen him cry before. Callie's throat tightened. "Do you think he would have loved me?" Daniel's voice broke slightly. He already did. School was a different world. She started slow, one class at a time, then two. Her teachers praised her hunger for knowledge. She studied late into the night, fueled not by fear but by fire. She wanted to prove she wasn't just a forgotten name. She was her mother's legacy, her father's daughter, and now her own person. She hadn't told anyone about the night Earl raised a gun at her, or that he had tried to sell her like she was livestock. But when a detective came knocking months later, saying Earl had gone missing and was wanted for fraud, Callie simply said she hadn't seen him since the day she left. It wasn't a lie. Daniel handled the rest, quietly, legally. Francine never came looking. Maybe because she knew she'd have nothing to say in her own defense. Maybe because she had never truly cared. But not everyone from the past was poison. One afternoon, as Callie walked through the college campus for her entrance interview, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned and saw Mrs. Carter, the retired librarian from the local church, standing with tears in her eyes. "Callie Marie Walker," the woman whispered. "You made it out." Callie smiled. "I'm not done yet." 3 years passed. Callie stood at the edge of a graduation stage in a blue cap and gown, her eyes scanning the crowd. Daniel was there, standing proudly in the front row, clapping louder than anyone. After the ceremony, he hugged her tight. "Your father would be proud. Your mother too." Callie nodded. "But I didn't do this just for them." Daniel looked at her questioningly. She smiled. "I did it for the girl I used to be, the one sleeping on a dirt floor, hoping someone would come." That night, Daniel handed her an envelope. Inside was a deed. To what she asked. "To the old farm," he said. "I bought it from Earl's cousin when it went up for auction. Thought you might want to do something with it, or tear it down. Either way, it's yours." Tears welled in her eyes. Not because of the land, but because someone had finally given her a choice. "I think I want to build a shelter there," she said softly. "For girls like me, girls no one comes for." Daniel blinked fast, then nodded. That would make it the most valuable land in the state. In the months that followed, Callie worked hard. She used her voice in articles and talks and in schools. Her story, once something she tried to bury, became a seed of hope for others. And one day at a community fundraiser, she met a girl no older than she'd been at 17. Quiet, hollow-eyed, clutching a backpack and nothing else. Callie sat beside her. "You're safe now." The girl didn't answer, but her hand reached for Callie's. That was the beginning. That night back home, Callie lit a candle by the window. Not for sorrow, but for memory. For her mother who never stopped believing. For her real father who tried too late, but loved her still. For Daniel who chose her. And even for Earl, not out of forgiveness, but because she would not let him shape who she became. She stood by the window and whispered, "I am not what they did to me. I am what I chose to become." And that was how Callie Walker, once a forgotten girl from a dying farm, rewrote the end of her story. Not with revenge, not with hate, but with healing. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future. What would you have done in Callie's place? Could you forgive a past that tried to destroy you? If this story moved you, comment 100 below. Let us know what country you're watching from, and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that light can come after darkness.